From the dawn of evolution, one half of humanity has always been overlooked, silenced, and sidelined. But why? What is it about women's existence that led to such traditions and treatments across history? Is it the culture? Or is it power? I'm afraid there is only one right answer to this question. An answer that we are very uncomfortable to talk about. An answer more natural. It's based on the natural phenomenon called the menstrual cycle. So before I move on to my topic, we're going to go on a journey through history. And we're going to figure out how women dealt with this menstruation cycle before the advent of modern sanitary pads. It's quite logical to know the fact that the menstrual cycle was used as a tool to calculate date and time long before the invention of calendars. However, menstruation was relatively rare before the 20th century. The major reason behind this is extended pregnancies and poor diet. Diets were too poor that your cycles could disappear for months. But just because these were rare, that didn't mean that women didn't have to deal with it. So let's start with the ancient period. We all know how Egyptians were always one step ahead of time, right? Egyptian women used papyrus, a material used to write scriptures back in the ancient century. So they collected a bunch of it, soaked it in water, and used it like a tampon. And when it comes to the Greeks and the Roman, they used vegetable fibers. So these vegetable fibers were quite a creative way indeed. But during this era, taboos were already taking root. An ancient philosopher, Pliny the Elder, stated that menstruating women were so powerful that they had the ability to summon lightning and destroy crops. Could you imagine the fear and misunderstanding perpetuated by statements like this? Then came the Middle Age, and trust me, they were no better. Women were labeled untouchable. Men would flee up to the mountains claiming the devil was lurking around the corner. Could you believe that? Well, in other households, women were confined to a corner where they have to spend their entire cycles. The sad part is that menstrual products were indeed available in the Middle Ages, but only the nobilities or the noble women were able to afford it. So what about the rest of them? They had to depend on bizarre methods like using a rag cloth, and sometimes even to an extent, they used dried frogs. Yes, you heard me right. Dried frogs were considered good absorbents of blood, and they were known to lighten your periods. However, this was considered quite risky. So Asian women practiced the usage of cotton materials like a bandage as a sanitary tool. And then came the evolution. We all know how the World War I goes by, right? And how the soldiers made sure that they saved their country, protected, and everything. The true heroes. Well, not in our story. The nurses of the World War I, they discovered that the cellulose bandages used in World War I to treat wounded soldiers were indeed quite good absorbents, a very comfortable polymer. So this sparked the idea of using the cellulose bandages as a sanitary tool. Meanwhile, this gave birth to the very first sanitary product called Kotex. Kotex is the very first patented sanitary product. It was advertised in a way like, ask for it by its name. So we go to the shop and rather than asking for a packet of noodle, we ask for a packet of Maggie, claiming it by the brand's name. So just like that, women went up to the stalls and asked for a packet of Kotex. And this very same idea gave birth to the very first tampon brand called Tampax. However, Tampax faced a lot of societal rejections as young women used it as a contraceptive method. Well, that's cunning. And then comes our main picture. The pioneer of sanitary pads, the mother of modern sanitary pads, Mary Kenner. Mary Kenner was an African American woman who had to face 30 long years back and forth in court fighting for her product as it was repeatedly rejected due to racism. So after all these years, after the progress we've been through, after the evolution we've been through, we are here at the 21st century where we've got quite comfortable sanitary pads, I assume. Well, are the taboos in an end now? So I believe that many of us would have experienced this. So you go to a shop and you ask for a sanitary pad. The shopkeeper says, lower your voice. What if somebody hears you? He panics and then he picks up the pad with a little bit of disgust, wraps it tightly in a newspaper, makes sure that no one else is looking, and then hands it over to you. Trust me, I've seen men praying to God, asking for forgiveness after they barely touch the packet's covering. The shame around menstrual cycle is just one part of this taboos. There are quite a lot. And this brings me to my main topic. Why is India reluctant to change? After all these years, after all these progress, the sanitary pad is to be famed as a great invention. We praise a lot of invention. The sanitary pad is yet to be, Mary Kenner is yet to be framed as the woman or the mother of the modern sanitary pad. So let me share one of my own story. So we went to this village called Karvelampatti. This village is situated 36 kilometers away from the serene hills of Kodaikanal. Well, the journey was quite adventurous. We literally had to cross an entire river, 2 other streams, because the roads were quite bad. Wait, let me reframe. There were absolutely no roads at all. And we went up to this village, and the scenes were quite heartbreaking. The poverty they were in, they were not even close to any modernization. And that's when I discovered a few huts located in a little bit of distance. So out of curiosity, I went near it, and I was so shocked when I was stopped by a few villagers, and they said men were not allowed near it because these were menstrual huts. Yes, even in 21st century, menstrual huts are still in practice. So women are locked up in these huts. They are not allowed to let out until they are done with their periods or until they are labeled clean. This isn't the only thing about this village, because it's quite shocking to know how dangerous it is. Rural traditions and abusive mindsets are strongly rooted in our brains. I heard one of the village elders speaking, with a little rise in my voice, my wife will crawl in my feet. He was quite proud of the fact that he maintained an abusive household. He was quite proud of this fact. The villagers made it even worse. They were very fascinated by this man. They wanted to maintain such a household in their houses as well. Let's forget about the rural traditions. We'll come to urbanization. And it's quite shocking to know that during the COVID pandemic, just in the very first wave, Household abuses were thrice in number. So, what's the main reason behind it? When there is no one particular reason, I strongly believe that one of the reasons would be the lack of sex education. Raise your hands if your teacher has skipped this chapter in your class 10. Yes, I see quite a few hands. We are still away from the lack of sex education, which builds a very downfalling scenario. The consequences are quite bad. Unplanned pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases. When are we going to grow? We have to understand the fact that menstrual taboos are just a single piece of this huge puzzle. India is rife with resistance to change. There are other social taboos like education and career choices. We live up in cities and our parents indeed appreciate us going for a unique career perspective. We are building startups, I'm studying cybersecurity, and these are all unique career choices, you know. But that's not the case in every single place. We've been talking about sanitation and hygiene, right? Do you know that there are almost 10 times the number of smartphones than there are toilets in India? And that's not the end. Superstitions and rituals like honor killing are still in practice. Modern medical practices are still criticized. We call it English medicine. We are afraid to use it. And then comes gender roles. Men are not supposed to dance. Women are not supposed to go for a job. They are said to be in the kitchen. And I can talk about caste-based practices throughout the day. And one quite unpopular opinion is urbanization and migration. How many of our grandparents are still sticking to those difficulties in rural areas, afraid of change and coming into the cities? Change is something we as Indians fear. Making career choices, fear of change. Taking a big step, fear of change. This happens quite a lot in India. So, unlike other TED Talks, rather than leaving answers, I'm here to leave a few questions. Do we need for mindset shifts? Do we need to change our mindsets? When will we as Indians adapt to modernization? Are our traditions a barrier or a bridge to change? When will we Indians stop fearing change and start embracing it as an opportunity for growth? Well, I know that one TEDx talk might not change the world, but it can definitely spark a thought. And with that said, change starts here. Change starts with you, and change starts right now. Thank you.